So in some of these videos we're going to be concentrating on technique rather than on specific steps. And in this one I want to look at the tango walk, the way we actually walk in tango. Now that's not just when we're just moving in a straight line down around the dance floor. This is the same way that we step whether we're in an ocho or a hero or any other move. It's all derived from the tango walk and the way that we actually step. So firstly, the thing to not do is just stroll along like you're wandering down the high street heading to the shops. It's a much more purposeful walk than that. Think tall. Weight is just on one foot. My right foot is weighted at the moment. Think tall. Project slightly forwards towards your partner. Don't bend and stick your bum out, but just stand up and think straight. The movement comes from the chest, and you'll see why in a minute when we connect up. So think that the movement starts in the chest, and then you place your free leg down just where you need it to be to stop falling forward. Collect, carry on through, step again. So if I've done this right, if you were to put that in slow motion, which I assume some of you now are, you should see that the chest moves before the foot. So from here, the chest goes, then the foot. Chest goes, then the foot. It's just that little tiny bit first. We're not falling forward and then transferring the weight, but we are just letting the chest move, then the foot goes afterwards. The other thing is we don't take our time in the actual transition. So we don't get to there, half of my weight on here and half of my weight on here, and then slowly transfer the weight forward. It's all done in one. We step, transfer, and the weight goes forward onto the front foot. Keep the back leg straight, and for as much of the time as possible, keep your feet on the ground. So if you have a short run here, so as you see, if I go forwards, my toe is on the ground right until the last moment. Toe, right until the last moment. Toe, there. Put the heel down first when you get there, so it's just like a little flick. Yeah, you'll hear that noise as people are walking. You hear a sort of, yeah. You can just hear that little scuff of the heels going forwards. As I say, keep the back leg straight. And as you're collecting, try not to allow the ankle to collapse. You want to keep the big toe on the ground, not the little toe on the ground. So you're stepping forwards, transfer, big toe on the ground, transfer. Yeah? When you're going backwards, same sort of thing applies. Do you want to do the backwards bit? I'll lead you. So, as I lead her backwards, the first thing that happens is that my chest moves. That creates the projection. Toe is still on the ground, and then I step through, the weight transfers. See, at this point I still haven't quite collected. There's no weight on it, but I've left the foot there. I collect, then there's a little bit of a lean, and we go. Yeah? It's a lot easier to do when you're not talking about it. By the way, this is what we call the sort of practice hold or practice embrace. It just gives a little bit more room to get the footwork wrong while you're practicing. So it's leader, place your hands on the follower's shoulders or upper arms. Followers, place your hands on the leader's upper arms. If you place the hands on the shoulders, it's really hard to make this work. Whereas if you place on the upper arms, then we've got a nice bit of lead. We can create this connection. It's very similar to the embrace, but just a bit more spaced out. So you balance out to start with, lead with the chest, step through. Step through. Yeah? Now this applies just as much when we're going around ochos as whether we're as when we're going in straight lines. So if I'm going to do a back ocho here, I'll do a little bit of a lead, she'll project, and then transfer the weight. Transfer, going to lead, and she'll transfer the weight. So all the time, just think about that stepping as one thing, not as step a bit and then transfer the weight, yeah? So when you're stepping backwards, followers, a common thing that seems to happen is that as you step back, you sort of feel like you're stepping over something, and you lift and then place the foot. Lift and then place the foot. Firstly, what happens there is if we're in hold, if you do that, we end up colliding knees if you're not careful. So as I lead there, as she lifts, yeah, because I'm now encountering knees before she's getting out of the way. So keep the toe on the ground and push back. I described it a little while ago as like sliding a couple of beer mats backwards under your feet and trying to keep them with you. And that seemed to catch the imagination, so it seems to work. Yeah, so there's no lifting of the foot. The other thing is, when you're sliding backwards, don't resist the temptation to slide backwards and transfer some weight as you go. Imagine you're on a stage, walking backwards towards the edge, and you put your foot out to see if you've reached the edge. You haven't, so you can transfer the weight. But then you think, have I reached the edge yet? And then you can transfer the weight. Watch out with the bookcase. So, the whole time, think about projecting and then stepping, not doing it all as one thing. Yeah. Forward, again, when you're stepping, make sure that you keep the toe on the ground for as long as possible. So, as I lead her forward, the front leg is on the ground, and then the back leg doesn't step over anything either. You collect together with the toe on the ground, the big toe on the ground. Harder to see this direction. There. Collect. Yeah? So when we're in hold and when we're actually doing this walk, we have this connection which they refer to as the Epilado. It's the sort of leaning in of the embrace. And what happens is that if you imagine that our feet are this far apart, and then we both transfer our weight onto the front part of our feet. We're still upright. What we haven't done is bent in the middle. Yeah. We've just brought the weight forward onto the front part of our foot, and then our upper bodies get closer together. And that's the shape we want to try and create. So followers, particularly, since you do more walking backwards than leaders, when you project back, think almost about projecting your chest up and forward towards your partner. Yeah? So as that happens, she creates resistance, and I can then lead her successfully. If on the other hand, when you step back, you think, oh, I'm going, and you start your movement too early, it sort of ends up with the leader overrunning the follower if you're not careful. So I start there, and then already I'm now, it's gone wrong. So it's a fight the whole time. So followers, just keep the upper part of your body slightly leaning, resisting the lead.